Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing the astrology report for the week commencing the 11th of April and outlining some of the key transits taking place this week, some of the key changes and what they all mean for us. Now before I go through the actual aspects for the week, I just want to clarify, as I do on all the videos, that astrology does not control our lives in any way. It's merely a map to help us understand what the energies around us are doing. How our lives unfold is our individual responsibility, and how we make our choices influences that. What astrology can do is can give us context to what's going on around us and allow us to engage with things in a more conscious way so that we're responding to events rather than reacting unconsciously. Now in terms of the transits, I'll go through the moon's passage through the signs first as usual. We're starting off with the moon in Aquarius, so this will be a time where we may feel that we need to be a little bit detached and pull back from the work we've been doing, and also look at our role within our communities and how we can best work towards that. But on Wednesday itself, the moon will move into Pisces, and this is a time that's very good for meditation, of reflecting on how we're connected to everything around us and to meditate on that feeling of oneness and identify any potential dreams we may want to initiate. Now on Saturday, the moon will then move into Aries, and this being a new cycle through the zodiac, this is a time of taking action, of striving towards any goals that we have set for ourselves and determining what is the best course of action and going for it. So there's often a time where we feel motivated to act, and during this period on the 16th we'll have the new moon in Aries, so this is the first new moon of the new astrological year, and this gives us the opportunity for identifying what goals we want to set for ourselves to manifest over the course of the year. Then on the same day the moon will enter Taurus, and this is a time where I may feel that need to slow down a bit, to go back to square one for a moment and look at taking things a bit more slowly, of working on that feeling of connection, of feeling grounded, and understand the need to take things slowly, so taking things one step at a time rather than trying to rush headlong into anything. Now in terms of the key changes, most of it's taking place from the 15th onwards. However, an important aspect taking place on Wednesday itself is a square between the Sun and Pluto, which will be exact. This aspect will be felt over the entire week, and this is a time where we need to observe our interaction with others, especially in terms of the nature of power between different people, and looking at, do we engage in any kind of power plays with people, whether consciously or unconsciously, or do we project our power onto other people in order to maintain a position of powerlessness or sense of victimhood? And where do we need to go within ourselves and identify where we're projecting an internal conflict outwards? We won't project both sides of the conflict. We'll either project the Sun's side, so the life-giving or the energetic side, or the Plutonian side, where we project our shadow onto other people. But if we're relying on projection, then we won't actually grow. So during this week, it's important that we look at any power plays going on or any conflict we're experiencing, especially when it's to do with authority, and recognise where we're just using someone else as a psychological hook to project our issues onto, because the only way we can resolve this is to go inwards and recognise what is the core nature of the conflict inside us that we're projecting part of it onto other people in order to try and gain some kind of awareness of it. Now the first key change this week will be on Sunday, the 15th. This is when Mercury turns direct again, having been retrograde since the 23rd of March. So this is a time where whatever insights we've gained through the Mercury retrograde into how we communicate and our relationship with things like assertiveness, the actions that we take and what goals we set for ourselves, and what our relationship is with assertiveness and anger. So we may well have experienced over the past few weeks periods where either we've been maybe potentially more impulsive than normal or more aggressive, or where we may have had highlighted to us where we struggle with assertiveness and where we tend to back down rather than standing our own ground and remain true to who we are. So whatever insights we've learned about ourselves and our relationship with assertiveness and our ability to take action in our lives to manifest things, whatever we've learned, we now need to be applying in life and allow it to be integrated into our consciousness. It becomes a part of who we are and not just a flash in the pan. Because if we don't learn to take on board the lessons and incorporate them into our lives and embody those lessons, then we don't make the best use of the Mercury retrograde itself. So with Mercury now direct and going back over the same degrees as retrograded over, this is a time of incorporating the lessons that we've learned and making sure that we don't forget them, that we don't discard them, and we move forward with these lessons now integrated. The next day, as I mentioned towards the beginning, we have a new moon in Aries. This is the first new moon of the new astrological year, and it's a good time for initiating new beginnings, of really taking action on those goals. We also need to look at what goals is it that we actually want to manifest. The Mercury retrograde has been very useful in terms of identifying where goals or actions aren't actually aligned with who we are, and to make sure that what we're doing is true to who we are. So with the new moon following quickly on its heels, this gives an opportunity for us to initiate new beginnings which are more closely aligned with who we are. And it also deals with looking at setting intentions like being authentic and developing that sense of autonomy and that sense of independence, but also that pioneering spirit, the willingness to take actions towards a new goal without knowing the outcome in advance. Because we can never know everything before we start a new task. There will always be things that we're not aware of, but if we don't take the action, nothing will ever happen. So this is a time for looking at what goals do we want to manifest and then taking the actions necessary in order to do so. The next day we have two key events taking place. First one is Chiron will be moving into Aries for the first time since 1977, when he's moving out of Aries and into Taurus. And this is the first time since Chiron's discovery that he will be actually transiting through Aries. So with Chiron, it's the wounded healer. There will be another video on this to give more detail about it. But the main thing to remember during this time is it's the wound to the sense of self-identity. It's the wound to the I am. And this is a transit which will go back into Pisces later in the year for one last dip into the Piscean lessons before moving completely into Aries. But the next 8 years, which is the length of time Chiron spends in Aries, this is a time where we need to be reviewing and looking at our sense of who we are and what choice of words we place after the words I am. Because if you know anything about affirmations, I am is usually the beginning part of it, because it's an affirmative statement. It's making a statement about your sense of identity. So with Chiron moving through Aries, a key lesson will be how we define ourselves through the choices of words we place after the words I am. Because whatever we say after the words I am will define our sense of self and how we interact with the world. So if we're using disempowering words after the words I am, then we'll be limiting our potential, we'll be limiting our self-definition, and we'll just keep inviting more of the same into our lives. So part of the lesson of Chiron's transit through Aries will be truly understanding how affirmations work and making sure that we choose our words very carefully. Because if we're not careful about what words we use to describe ourselves, we can end up limiting ourselves or preventing ourselves from taking those actions because we undermine our sense of self by using the wrong kinds of words. Now the other thing on Tuesday will be Saturn turning retrograde in Capricorn, and it will not turn direct again until the 6th of September. Saturn retrograde can feel a bit like having a chrysalis built around part of the psyche. It encapsulates a part of us and it goes dormant. So it's a bit like the stage where a caterpillar suddenly stops consuming everything and ends up wrapped in a cocoon. And this is a period where Saturn is like a guardian of potential. If we don't learn lessons or we don't take responsibility for ourselves and take greater authority over our lives, then the potential will not be released for us to use it. So Saturn is also known as the karmic gatekeeper. If we're taking actions which bring about negative karma, then we will reap what we sow and undermine what we're doing. So the only way we can transform this is by taking responsibility for who we are, taking responsibility for our actions, and developing qualities like patience, self-discipline, and being prepared to own our mistakes. It may not be very comfortable when we've done something wrong or made any kind of mistakes or cock-ups, but it's only through taking ownership of these mistakes, or taking ownership of these weaknesses, that they can be transformed and turned used as lessons rather than something to beat ourselves up over. So a key part of the shift is learn to take responsibility for when things go wrong. I say wrong, quote unquote, but they're just lessons to learn. And if we learn the lessons, then we don't have to repeat them. But with the lessons, we'll keep repeating until we get the gist of it and we learn to align ourselves with the lessons and become more empowered as a result. But as the saying goes, the price of freedom is responsibility. If we want to achieve true freedom and true empowerment, then we have to take responsibility for our actions, and this requires that personal discipline, it requires that patience and that perseverance and the willingness to delay gratification. Because if we just pursue instant gratification, we may achieve short-term goals, but they'll never feel particularly valuable or useful or particularly positive for us or fulfilling, because we're just taking shortcuts. But if we dedicate ourselves to a long-term goal and we take those steady actions even when things don't appear to be moving forwards, then eventually the discipline is rewarded through greater achievements in the long run. But Saturn tests our willingness to put aside the need for instant gratification and to really knuckle down and take responsibility for our lives, to dedicate ourselves to a goal that's much harder than what we may normally set for ourselves, but will bring us that sense of fulfillment and that sense of accomplishment that no one can take away from us, because we've worked hard at it, we've earned the rewards through hard work, and that's not something that anyone can take away from us. But with Saturn retrograde, we may also find that things don't move forward very quickly, because we're being tested on the fine details, are being tested on our willingness to take things slowly, to conserve energy so we're not going at things madly. And it's also a time of addressing our relationship with authority and becoming a greater authority within our own personal lives. This doesn't mean that we then lord it over other people, but it's only through becoming the authors of our own lives that we can develop that inner authority. So we have to be willing to write our own stories, to take ownership of how our lives unfold. And when we recognise that we're undermining our sense of self or selling ourselves short, then we make the necessary changes to change that, to transform it. So that's the Saturn retrograde. There's a lot to take on board this week, and a lot of key changes in place as well. As I've said, I will do other videos on these to go into more depth, but the main thing to remember is this is a week where, whilst Mercury's turning direct and we may start experiencing more forward motion in that respect, with Saturn turning retrograde and Chiron changing signs, and next week Pluto turns retrograde, this is a time where we need to remember to still go through things slowly rather than rushing blindly ahead. Take the slow road, because if we keep rushing around, then we end up burning ourselves out. So Saturn also deals with learning to conserve our energy and the wise use of energy, so we don't burn ourselves out through charging into something which actually requires a slower, more methodical approach to things. There's a lot to take on board, but this is a week where there's a lot of opportunities for significant changes and transformations to take place, but only if we embrace the process. But as I said at the start, the planets do not force any change upon us. They merely highlight the kind of lessons and spiritual gifts available for us and spiritual lessons to learn. If we engage with the process and learn the lessons, then we become more empowered as a result. But how we learn the lessons is based on our actions and is based on our willingness to engage in spiritual discipline. All the astrology does is serve as a map. If we don't take action, we don't move any further forward in life. So if we choose to take action and choose to take responsibility for our lives, then we give ourselves the potential to achieve something truly remarkable in life and to feel significantly more empowered through taking responsibility for ourselves, through taking responsibility for our thoughts, our words, our actions and beliefs, and through aligning them with truth, we enable ourselves or unlock greater potential within us and greater power to fulfill our own goals, ideally aligned with the higher laws of spirit, rather than trying to pursue goals that make us better but could potentially cost other people. So may the astrology bring you many blessings and much growth. Before I go, I just want to add that we have a new website up now, so please feel free to go on our website and have a look at what's on. The astrology is just one small part of the Magdalene Centre. We have so much more available. I'll post links in the description below so you can access our website and see what else we do. And it'd be great if any of you could come along to some of the workshops we offer, like the meditation, and see what else we have to offer you. So may you have a great week. Take care.